Hello everybody, my name is Ratnos, and today I'm going to make a video talking about what is new this week. And compared to last week, there's a ton of new stuff in the game this week. The big news is that Season 1 has started up, which means that both Mythic Plus, Raid, which is Castle Nathria, and PvP have all really opened up instead of being left in, Mythic Zeros and doing all this character prep that we were doing in the last couple weeks. Importantly, Mythic rating is not available yet. That will be available next week. And LFR rating, if that's your thing, the first wing of LFR won't open until next week. But those other three things, normal and heroic raid, Mythic Plus, and PvP are all starting this week. So let's talk about how they're starting this week and then some of the stuff that is not quite here yet, because every form of the game has kind of got some, break in place until next week. So starting off with the raid of course opened on normal or heroic, 10 bosses, quite a lot to get through there, and the item rewards can be pretty substantial actually from the raid. You're going to get some very good items out of here. Let's take a look at Castle Nathria. So the loot on heroic from most of these bosses is item level 213, and on normal it's item level 200. But Stone Legion Generals and Sire Denathrius are the last two bosses of this raid, and they will drop item level 220 should be for most of these things. Yeah, it looks like the conduits are maybe still 213, but the other items will be 220 on heroic. And on normal, they should be 207? Yeah, 207 on normal. So pretty good items available out of there. The raid is definitely a great source to get early good items. And 220 is about the highest you can get next week. So from PvP, you're also capped to 220 next week. And then from Mythic Plus, there's some weird capping going on next week. So here's the table for what loot you can get from M Plus next week. Many of us expected that it was going to be capped at Mythic 6 next week, but in fact it's going to be capped at Mythic 10, and item level 203 from the end of your dungeon run. What's really weird about this is that the following week, starting on Mythic Week, that same dungeon will reward 207 instead of 203 loot. So there's this kind of weird place we're in where Mythic 10 is going to be the cap, and it's a higher item reward than Mythic 9, but it's a smaller reward than it will be next week from the same dungeon. I'm not 100% sure why it's like this, but, fair enough. This is going to keep it below that normal Stone Legion Generals and Sire Denathrius loot level. But notably, it does mean that if you're able to do Mythic 7s or higher before the raid, you'll be able to trade gear from normal, which was something we initially thought wouldn't be possible from Mythic Plus. Now, there is a Great Vault as well, and the Great Vault doesn't open next week, but you can begin to fill your Great Vault for the following week, starting this coming week. Sorry, I may have said next week when I meant this week. I'm recording this in advance. So here's how the Great Vault works. It's basically the weekly box from previous expansions, except it looks at all three of Raid, PvP, and Mythic Plus, and you can only pick one item out of it. So you can get up to 9 items to be available in the Great Vault if you do a ton of PvP and Raid and M+, but you can only ever pick one item out of it. So that most players aren't going to get all 9 of these slots. I'm not going to get all 9 of these slots. Some of the very hardcorest players may have 9 options available from the Great Vault, but I think that even having just 3 good options from the Great Vault, you're going to be in great shape to be picking a sizable upgrade out of there. And notably, the Great Vault rewards that you can earn next week, or this week, but not open until next week, will not be capped. So the item level you're looking for from the Great Vault from Mythic Plus is 226, and that is from a Mythic 14. Very few players are going to be able to do Mythic 14s this week, but it will be possible, and some will. If you do 114, you'll get 1 226 option in your Great Vault. If you do 4, you'll get 2 options in your Great Vault. And if you can do 10 Mythic 14s, you will have 3 options in your Great Vault. The way the Great Vault works is that it looks at your first, 4th, and 10th best dungeons of the week. So if you did a 14, 5 10s, and then 5 more 5s, you would have 1 226 item, because your best dungeon was a 14, 1 220 item, because your 4th best was a 10, and 1 210 item, because your 10th best was a +5. So if you actually want to get several options at 226, you actually would need to do 10 plus 14s. For most cases, I think that you'd be delighted with just even the 1 226 item in your Great Vault. So if you could push even one key up to that, that's great. Don't feel obligated to try and push more, because the odds are pretty good that any 226 item is going to be an upgrade for you. And even if you can't get to Mythic plus 14, even if you can just do plus 10, that's a 220 item. And even if you can just do a plus 8, that's a 216 item. Those are all going to be better than like all of your items. So regardless of how hard you can go next week, go as high as you can. Do not feel obligated by the fact that the cap is so high. Don't feel obligated to hit that cap, because this cap, it's not going to be easy to do these level keys without Mythic raid gear, without several weeks of these kind of lower ranked Great Vault gears. And with still just, you're going to have a bunch of 184 items on your character, because you can't, because you're not going to be lucky and upgraded them yet. So do not worry about that from Mythic Plus. And then, so starting next week, everything is going to be the same on this table, except for these rewards here. So on Mythic Week, these are going to go up by a few item levels, and you can get even slightly more. You can get 2 10s from Mythic plus 15. Those rewards will pretty quickly be irrelevant, and the main sources of Mythic Plus loot long-term this expansion are going to be from those Great Vault items. But if you don't like Mythic Plus, don't fear. You can also get 226 from your Great Vault from PvP if you are a duelist or higher. And you can upgrade Conquest gear, which you can buy from a PvP vendor, all the way up to 220, and which will also, I think, go all the way up to 226, starting not this week, but next week. Conquest gear, you can only earn 550 Conquest per week, so you won't be able to fully fill out a PvP gear set that quickly, but you will be able to make meaningful upgrades to your character basically every week through this system, especially if you have a high PvP rating. Also, you will get Great Vault rewards from raiding in your Great Vault, and if you're able to kill Stone Legion Generals and Sire Nathria on Heroic, their Heroic items can show up in your Great Vault as well, and that can be a great alternative, especially if you're not able to get that high in Mythic Plus. And even if you are, some of these items, it's very possible that like these trinkets may just outperform whatever your Mythic Plus options are, even at slightly lower item level, but you can get 220 out of your Great Vault if you're able to slay Stone Legion Generals and Sire Nathrias. You do need to actually kill these bosses to be able to get those higher item level ones in your pool, so you can't just kill the first couple bosses on Heroic and high roll into a Stone Legion Generals or Sire Nathrias item if you have never actually killed those bosses before. So that's the deal with the Great Vault and rewards next week. The basic idea is, compared to previous expansions, especially if you only pick one of PvP, M+, and Raid to focus on, it will take you longer to gear up than before. But that path towards best in slot items, or at least towards best in terms of whatever kind of content you're doing items, is more deterministic. You're actually going to get there, and you're never going to have those 10 slots where you could theoretically Titan Forge something better floating over you. So I'm actually a fan of this new system. It does mean that doing multiple forms of content will be rewarded, though, and you will get your items, particularly high-level PvP and high-level raiding. If you're interested in being as geared as possible, you're going to want to combine both of those, rather than being able to get all of your slots from just one in a few weeks. In addition to that, there's also world bosses that will be beginning to spawn next week. All of the world bosses will drop conduits that are for your Covenant ability. So for instance, my Kyrian Demon Hunter, my conduit for Elysian Decree, drops from all 4 of the world bosses. Additionally, each world boss drops some legendary memories. The most notable of these, I think, is probably the Fire Mage one, Fevered Incantation, but there are a couple of good ones for several specs here, and it will be extremely relevant which order these bosses occur in, because if you're waiting until 4 weeks from now to get your legendary, that's a little bit worse than being able to craft it starting now. So good luck if you're out there, if you're looking for one of the legendaries from one of these bosses. I hope that it spawns for you. There's also some new layers in Torghast. Hopefully the final 2 halls that we haven't seen before will be open, that's my understanding, which means that if you have a legendary from Torghast, you should be able to have gotten it by now, and that's nice. And layers 4, 5, and 6 are going to open in Torghast, which means more Soul Ash per week starting now, and which means harder Torghast content. I expect that layer 6 should be pretty doable with all the gear you're going to earn from this week, but I'd caution the same thing that I cautioned in week 1 of this expansion, which is to save your Torghast to the end of the week if your character is feeling a little weak, because all those item levels you get from all the other stuff you do throughout the week will make it a lot easier and means that you won't have to keep re-rolling until you get whatever broken anima powers you need to get through there. Finally, there's some more progress in the Maw that's available. Obviously the Maw progresses at your own pace, but if you've been playing pretty frequently and you've been doing weekly stuff, you probably will be able to open at least Perdition Hold and maybe even the Beast Warrens starting this week. The Beast Warrens has hunts in it, which appear to reset bi-weekly, so twice per week. And early last week, there was a hunt for a boss that had a Maw mount available as a rare drop chance from it. My guess is that that won't be available this week and will be available next week sometime. So my guess is you still have quite a bit of time to start rolling for that, and you don't have to rush towards unlocking the Beast Warrens in order to try and get that next week. But I'm not 100% sure. It's not been fully confirmed exactly what calendar those hunts are on. Certainly, as soon as you see I think it's the Soul Hounds hunt in the Beast Warrens, as soon as you've unlocked it, make sure you're doing those until you get your Maw mount, or until you get it from Layer 8 of the Twisting Corridors in Torghast, which is also a source of a mount that works in the Maw. All right, I think that's about it for this week. One thing that is kind of absent is, unless there are extra sources of redeemed souls that I don't know about, we're not going to be constructing any new Covenant buildings this week if you've already built rank 1 of all the buildings. If you've held off on building some of the buildings, you might be able to upgrade one of the other ones to rank 2, but most players, I believe the best thing to do was to craft all of your buildings at rank 1, and so you either have this week to catch up and get that done, or if you've already done that, this week I don't think you're going to be able to make a new building upgrade to any of your existing ones. I think you'll have to wait till next week on that. So a pretty light week in terms of all the extracurricular optional Shadowlands stuff, and a pretty heavy week in terms of now we've got M+, now we've got Raid, now we've got PvP. I hope this video helped. If you've got any questions about how any of these systems work, do put them in the comments below. Hopefully either I or somebody knowledgeable can help answer them. And if I'm wrong about any big things that I've said in this video, I will try to have a pinned comment that clarifies what I said. If this video helped, remember to hit like and subscribe and stuff, and check out my Twitch stream at twitch.tv/Ratnus. Thanks everybody for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.